think you were a little early on that one. I think you were a little early on the.
Should I do it again? I'll do it again.
No, do it again. Please do it again.
Woo! All right, let's go.
The hasty train has left the station. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, today is a wonderful day. Do you know why?
AM coffee, AAT?
Yeah, we are here really for late. A very special morning after show. Thank you all for joining us on your Saturday morning with your coffee or, whatever you happen to be doing right now. But thank you for adjusting to the time change for this. We want to make sure that we have the best pod possible for you. And this worked out really well. But Goose is an Ohio band. Peter said it.
Yeah.
This is a fact.
We didn't clip it in time, huh? We should have clipped
it. We didn't clip it in time. But Peter did say before the encore, Goose is an Ohio band.
This is abundantly true at this point. If you really stack up all of the Ohio shows against even Colorado, I think Ohio is winning by like a lot. And
Goose just felt a disturbance in the force.
In the force. It's like 6 years of track record of just destroying Ohio. And here we are. We're talking about yet another rager on the hasty train.
Oh man. Well, I mean, last night was one of those shows.
It was one of those shows.
Just so good.
I agree. I listened to the condensed version because I didn't listen to any of it at all last night. Woke up this morning and I was told this is an amazing show. And
also we're doing the pod.
That's true. 2 hours. Yeah. So I did the whole show in 2 hours. And I caught, I think, everything that I needed to catch and there was a lot. There was a lot to the show that you need to listen to if you're going back to re-listen to it. This is not a skip ahead to second set. This is not a listen to this one song in the first set and then maybe these two from the second set.
This is not even a skip the flow down.
This is not a skip the flow down show.
How often does that happen? But before
6 minute flow down intro.
Before we get into the show, really quick, talking about pre-show vibes and whatnot. They're happy to be here. The crowd is happy for them to be here. People were really excited for them to come back to the Brady Center here in Cincinnati after the New Year's run 2022. A lot of people loved it. I do have to say, hot take, this venue is not that good.
What?
The sound is great, but in terms
what else do you want?
So basically, here's what it's like, Neil. They built this venue. They looked at everything that was wrong with it, got rid of all those things, and then they built MGM in Boston.
Yep.
This is the MGM Music Hall, but slightly worse because we're like the tiers are the same and it's built in the same vertical where you're
listen up the chat now. Go ahead.
But the tiers are the same and it's built in a way that you're on top of the band, but the seats go back a lot further at the Brady Center. So in Boston, it felt like we were all together, like you were still getting the same crowd vibe wherever you were in the venue. But at the Brady Center, if you're like I was in section 104, which is like in the seats in the second tier, and I felt as though like I could only see like 20% of the crowd. And so I feel like you lose out on a little bit of the experience there.
The vibe.
Yeah, the vibe.
You're a vibes guy.
Whoa. Let's not get things twisted here. Also, you know how venues have like safety lights in the aisles for when the show is on? And they're usually like subtle and they don't interrupt your experience of the show?
Yes.
Well, the ones at the Brady Center are pretty bright. So that was kind of unfortunate. But the sound is amazing. They nailed that. They have small speakers underneath the overhangs, at least in the seats. So wherever you are, you're still getting an amazing mix, which took me until the second set to realize when Peter made some like weird synth sound and it didn't come from the direction of the stage. And then I looked up and I was like, oh, there are speakers right there.
Yeah, maybe it's that SOS transition into Dawn because that was some crazy weird synth sounds. But
I actually forgot about that.
Can't wait to dig in here. There's a lot. I got a lot of notes.
There's so much to talk about. But let's get going here. First couple of songs. Indie Groove Atlas Dogs and Elizabeth. Indie Groove Atlas Dogs seems to, be opening a couple of pretty good shows this year. It opened SPAC Night 2. It opened this one.
Opened a show that doesn't even exist. We're on a one show gap from a show that didn't even happen.
2 show gap. But always fun. It's a treat to get this now, and I thought it was a great opener. And then Elizabeth, as you said, Neil, like this has been another thing this year. Shows with an early first set Elizabeth that just kicks things into gear. And this again, it's a 10-minute Elizabeth, packs so much in 10 minutes. It's amazing.
A hot Liz is the harbinger of a great show all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And it really, it used to be Doc Brown in the 2 slot, but now it's like hot Liz to start. And this one is hot. You can tell from the beginning that they were on. I wish Jive Goose was here to chide me for saying that, but really, Rick starts doing the Rick thing early on, which is just finding melody, out of nowhere. Oh man, yes, that all night long, Peter's just locking in and finding excellent stuff. I mean, but the one thing that really stood out to me in this one was Trevor leaves no sonic space in this thing. It is a constant rumble throughout this jam, and that opens up a lot of space actually for Cotter at several points of this show to do some incredibly melodic drumming, which is a thing that he does from time to time. It's not like a constant, but this all begins right here. So this Liz, all of the things that are happening in this Liz are things that continue to happen throughout the show that are excellent. And all that centers around really great listening and full band jamming. This is the democratic jamming Goose that we all love. We don't always get it, and we see it right away in a 12-minute Liz. Let's just hype the hell out of this Liz right now. But like,
go listen to it.
It's like not that good. Yeah. But like it is good. It's really good, and it shows you what's coming through the rest of this show. Excellent.
Well, and that point about the democratic jamming, like they're at the point now in the year where I think that they are figuring out what 2024 Goose is. I feel like the first half of the year was like, and the June tour was really like, here's our first tour with Cotter. We're having a great time. And then September, it and all its inconsistencies, is them trying to take a step back and reevaluate, like, where do we go from here? How do we, capitalize on the momentum we have right now? And I think this, Florida through now, we're kind of seeing that they're figuring that out. And I think aside from Miami Night 2, I think the shows since coming back on this leg of fall tour have been like a new band from what we saw in September. Like they're playing so much, like the jamming at least, that was a little bit on the lesser side in some parts of September seems to be really everywhere, and you're getting that democratic jamming in pretty much every single show. And in a show like last night, you're getting it in every single jam.
Yeah. My central note of the whole entire show is that it's just brimming with musical ideas. And I feel like that is where the band is at right now. It's just inspiration, right? Like when you're jamming, like either you've got it or you don't. And right now, it really seems like they've got it. They found the thing, their muse, whatever it is. Shirtless Cotter or the beardless asshole.
Yeah, fucking beardless asshole.
The beardless asshole began it all.
Oh my god. Well, from there we get All I Need into One In, One Out. I would like to take this opportunity to shout out drum tech Jordan, who came in and held together the wires on Cotter's snare for the end of All I Need, because Cotter broke the snare, and so Jordan literally was standing there holding together the wires of the snare.
Well, that's what happens when you build the drum for the drummer. If it breaks, you got to hold it together. That's part of the warranty. Yes.
But I'm just saying, like, no, but like, and then they swapped the snare out. But like, he just watching him stand there. But it was really cool. But I know you have a lot of thoughts on this All I Need jam.
This All I Need short is absolutely excellent. Oh my god, it's really, really good. And what I really like about this again is another excellent example of this democratic jamming.
Yep.
And then some really nice full band dynamics work, which reminds me of like the Salt Shed Drip Field a little bit, not as dramatic, but still there. And my favorite thing about this is that Jeb and Trevor are just so ridiculously sturdy in the rhythm section that Cotter is basically like playing a lead instrument at points. He's just like doing these like fills on the toms that are incredibly melodic. So we're like kind of arcing up from like what I was talking about in Liz, and then it's like happening here even better. And holy crap, it is amazing. And then one of my favorite things about this is Rick signaling that like we're getting out of this jam and we're moving on. And it wasn't the thing that he always does, which is just like open string, like just 30-second sustained note, and then kind of a shift in vibe. That was sick. Do that all the time. No more open string thing. I'm over it.
We have been for a while. Do the
exactly.
Do the close us down for a little. Exactly. And I really like the way that they approach the segue into One In, One Out too. I think that they've been kind of trying to segue into that song, and I think the way that it starts, they've kind of been like, it's been a little bit blocky, but this one slid in nicely. You get All I Need after the Miami version, which was kind of hinting at One In, One Out at the peak. You get that again in this one. It like telegraphs the segue minutes out. They're in that zone. They're again not teasing the song per se, but they are in that zone. And it's really cool to hear them. Contains elements of One In, One Out.
Right. They were getting there early.
Yeah, exactly. They got there. Yeah. But One In, One Out, another solid 10-minute version. Nothing special here, but
neat little chord soloing by Rick in the middle. If you like that business, it's really tight in this one. I hope that kind of shows up in One In, One Out here from here on out.
Now, something we have never said on this podcast before. Let's talk about this flow down.
Let's spend
so
10
good.
minutes on this flow down. It is quite good.
So good.
It's surprising
they
how
started
good it
flow
is.
down, and I was like, okay, mid first set flow down, and then it kept going, and then there's that point where they like drop it down, and you're like, okay, they're just gonna do like the and go into the song, and then like Peter, starts getting synthy, and then it goes dark for a minute. I was like, whoa, what are we doing here? Can we say goat flow down?
I don't know about that. Like, I think you have to go back to like 2019, 2018 for some flow downs, and I'm not about to go and do that. So this is another instance of like, not to keep bringing up his name, but like Jive Goose is both like cringing right now somewhere on the pickleball court, and he knows what the best flow down is. But I'll say this: that what makes a flow down good is the jam that comes before the song. They flipped the song, not like a Disco Biscuits thing, but you know what I'm saying. And this one has 6 full minutes of that. And we've talked about this before. 6 full minutes of flow down intro can be really annoying, especially if you're trying to dance at the show and you're just like kind of like, when's it going to start? When's it going to start? But this one is actually pretty hot and pretty cool. So check it out. I feel like I've been made fun of on this podcast before for saying like, it's not a bad flow down. You should check it out. But this one's
real. You know what the difference is? This one's actually really good.
This one's actually really good.
This is actually a really good and notable flow down.
That's fair.
I don't know. I was kind of blown away, and it's that point, like, when you're at a show and they're throwing extra mustard and little jams in songs that don't normally get the treatment, you're like, whoa, like, yeah, exactly, Marty. Like any flow down, went to the bathroom, but this time came back to another 5 minutes of intro. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yep.
So after flow down, we got nice little Silver Rising breather, and then Large Contemporary to close the set.
Huge.
This is my favorite big modern that they've played so far. I think.
I think that's feel like you're obligated to say that every time they play the song. But
Hasty Train. No, I didn't say that in Florida.
You didn't? Okay.
No.
I feel like, that's the vibe on the internet. And somebody made the comparison, and whoever it was, like, you deserve all the credit for this, but I just can't remember who it was. But they were kind of saying it has the same kind of arc as Thatch, where like every version of Thatch is better than the previous version. And totally agree. Completely agree. It just keeps getting better and better and better. And this one is, oh boy. I don't know. Why don't you start with your thoughts? I think you wrote, 1,700 words on this, or?
I wrote 2,000 words on last night. So if that's your thing, ryanstorm.substack.com. Go check it out. So they started playing Big Modern. Obviously, I did not expect it last night, but I was very excited because it means they played it last night with the intention of playing it again in DC. That's why they short gapped Big Modern and Thatch, I believe, so they can play both of them again on Tuesday or Wednesday, which is very exciting.
Good news for those going to DC.
Yeah, we will be getting moderned. But well, of course, this jam, I mean, like, I was just listening to it before we hopped on the pod again, because I realized I had spent most of the time this morning listening to Thatch over and over again. And I was like, oh wait, the Big Modern's actually my favorite jam from last night. Sorry, this is my favorite jam from last night. And Trevor.
Yes.
So much Trevor in the early part of this jam. Also, sorry, I'm like all over the place here.
Oh,
Peter's playing Vintage Vibe. Peter's playing Vintage Vibe on the song now. First version with that, he's usually been playing a Wurlitzer patch on the Nord stage. And last night he used the Vibe for the first time.
Like literally the only person in all of Goose fandom that actually heard that difference.
Yep. And
if you're listening to the podcast,
let you all know.
And you have no idea what he's talking about because sonically they sound the same to you.
They do not.
Very, very similar. Okay. Like you're not alone. Yeah. But yes, go ahead.
The Vintage Vibe is more full sound. And I like the way that it sounded on this song. But yeah, so they get into this groove early on. And it reminded me of when I was listening this morning of the Goosemas 2022 Wisteria a little bit. Where it's like Trevor finds this riff and it's kind of this like kind of floaty thing where they all like lock in on this groove and kind of improv off of it for a while. But obviously the difference is 2024 Goose can do things that 2022 Goose can only dream of doing. And so there's so much more interaction happening in this motif. While like thematically they might be similar, they're completely different sounding jams because like there's just so much more activity from every single member of the jam. Like Rick finds a riff and then behind him like Trevor and Peter are throwing ideas around. Yep. And then all the while you have Guitar Jeb in there. No, but there are points in this jam, as I've been saying with lots of Big Moderns lately, like there are points in this jam where it's like, fuck yeah, Jeff. You know, like
I'm on the Guitar Jeb train at this point. Ever since the AIOU the other day.
Yeah, insane.
I mean, that was sick. It was really good. So I'm definitely on the Jeb train. And like you, I adore this jam. This jam you kind of touched on a little bit of Hey Hole jamming. But one thing that actually happens in this jam, if you're listening real close, like headphones style, is there's like a twin lead thing separated by octaves of Rick and Trevor playing the exact same notes.
Yeah.
And holy shit, might be the coolest thing I've heard all year long.
Yeah, and I forgot about that. Yeah.
It's nuts. And so like that's the listening. Everybody's listening to each other. The ideas are being thrown around. People are picking up on those ideas and adding to it. Again, full band jamming. And like this is the culmination of like all the things that started to happen in this set. And then they're fully locked in here. And man, does this part sound amazing. Yeah, I'm beside myself. It's so good.
Thank you for bringing up that Rick and Trevor interaction because I didn't catch that as much in the moment last night, but when I went back to listen this morning and I was writing, that happened, and I was like, what?
Yeah. Twin leads. Twin leads.
So cool. It's so good.
Yeah, and and that can happen when the rhythm section is so good.
Yeah,
and just laying it down, and then Trevor has the freedom to go and do that, and then of course Peter. Excellent rhythm work, I believe, on the piano in this part that I'm referring to. And it's just like just enough of a foundation, like a bedrock of rhythm that he can just go off and do whatever he feels like doing. And man, that is a type of Goose that I don't know if I've heard much of. But
no, this is the next level. Like this is what they've been hinting at all year, and they're finally getting to it. As I said, like we're getting it in every jam of this show instead of like, oh, here's one really cool few minute segment in the second set where they did that. But then they move into this darker space, and we've seen this a couple of times this year. I'm thinking of the Montana Indian River, where like Rick and Peter kind of start chasing each other up and down scales, and kind of like a kind of tension filled. zone, which was really, really cool. And then from there, you know, like we know Rick sometimes doesn't like to stay in the darker tones for very long. So he like modulates us back to major key. But Trevor grabs Rick and Peter's thing from earlier, like that's kind of dark, and keeps playing it when they go into the major key. And
Trevor's
it's like
the darkness.
Yeah. Like,
the tension,
oh my
man.
God. Like
Trevor is always adding tension. That is what he does really, really well.
Yeah.
And does it exceptionally well here. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, start bringing things back up.
The reentry is just like, I mean,
it's not even the reentry. It's just the peak before the reentry.
Yeah. You know,
it's,
like it's all so good.
Yeah. They're just gradually picking up more and more momentum.
That's 2024 Goose, by the way, right there.
Yeah.
That you're describing, that is the 2024 Goose sound, the emblematic sound of what this band is this year.
That's Cotter, right? Like he
Cotter,
has the ability to just slowly ramp up bit by bit by bit. And it doesn't feel as though it's just like, you know, foot to the floor at any point. It's like, you know, before you know it, the foot's to the floor. But you're just like, it feels so smooth the way you're getting there.
Yeah, you're the frog in the pot of water, as it were, slowly coming to a boil. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, man.
You don't even know how you got there.
And this peak reminded me of the St. Louis Born final peak, but faster. Has that kind of similar bluesy vibe to Rick's soloing that I really, really like. Like that ending peak from the St. Louis Born is still one of my favorite pieces of improv from this year.
Yeah.
I just think the way that they're all locking in there is so good. But yeah, that kind of struck me on re-listen this morning. I was like, yeah, it's got that same kind of vibe to it, which I really, really like. And then, you know, finish to Big Modern.
The finish to Big Modern actually just makes the jam feel like a bigger jam, but it's a composed section, but you just come back and like,
yeah. Well, I talk about sometimes how it's like, you don't always need to finish every song.
Yeah. This one you have to. Modern. If you don't finish Big Modern in that way, you failed miserably.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a little dramatic, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. We get the point. Anyway, set break, a little bit long. And at this point, I'm starting to realize that for the first time this year, 4 hours between ticket time and curfew. Finally. I looked at the clock. Yeah, thank you, Facebook user.
Yeah, whoever that is.
Proper 3 hours of music over 4 hours. Please do this more or always. Yeah, it was like, you know, they went on almost 30 minutes after ticket time, which, you know, I was a little worried about because I figured curfew was 11 because that's been the trend. But then with the timing of the second set, I was like, you know, they're not about to come on and play a 60-minute second set right now. Like they're not doing that right now. So like, is curfew 11:30? And when they started Pancakes at like, you know, 22 or whatever, I was like, oh my God, it is. Like, you know, I was like, this is the greatest day ever. You know, like we're getting 3 shows where they're not, you know, running up against curfew. They have.
Well, hold on. Knock on.
Well, I mean, they still ran up against curfew. You're right.
Yeah,
they still ran up against curfew, but I mean, like that extra 30 minutes I've been saying all year makes a world of difference. I mean,
you're right.
Yeah, you look at it in this, like nothing in the second set feels as though it had to be truncated, except for the encore. But
I was going to say, hold on. Like the encore tells me that they were in a hurry, but I haven't seen the
and they were. So. But I mean, in terms of how the second set played out, there wasn't anything towards the end that was like, we need to get off stage and do, you know, the encore or whatever. But they gave themselves that extra time. Now, I mean, if they want to go on a little earlier tonight and play even longer and then have time for a 15-minute encore, like, but
yeah, feels unlikely. But hey, we'll see.
Yeah, whatever. Let's talk about the second set.
Talk about the vibe.
Set break was great. I mean, everyone was just really excited. You know, a lot of people in the Ohio crowd seeing their first Big Modern. You know, people very excited about Big Modern because it's
high fives and hugs modern. In Ohio. Yeah, it feels like that's the place.
Lots of it.
Rust Belt.
Lots of it. But yeah, I really didn't know what to expect from the second set. Like after the Big Modern, I was like trying to process the jams from the first set and like what had happened. And it was just like, yeah. Like this show is awesome. And, you know, they come out with Thatch and you're like, okay, like, you know, again, same with Big Modern. They're setting that up for DC, but it's like, this is also cool because for the most part this year, we've been able to tell exactly when Thatch is getting played. And so when they come out of it when you're not expecting it, like they did last night, and they drop a version like this, like, so I just want to start off by saying that Peter Anspach should not be this good at playing keyboards. It shouldn't be possible. But here we are. The riff that he immediately finds.
So good.
The jam starts. He sets up like 2 different drones on the synths and then goes to clav. And within like 7 seconds has the coolest riff of all time. We talk about Rick pulling, melodies and riffs out of his ass. Like, what the hell is this?
I don't know. And I was saying this when we were kind of chat about it earlier when I was listening to it. I couldn't even tell what instrument it was because it sounded like a guitar to me, which I know the clav is meant to sound like a guitar. But Peter historically doesn't play the clav in that way. And he does here, and it sounds so sick. It's it's neat.
I talked yesterday about how important Peter has been lately with like these very simple sounding riffs that drive so much of the jam. And just like a little bit of phaser on the clav, and like just that it's the tone has so much body to it now without feeling super distorted. And he's just able to lay into these chords that are so good. And then Trevor, once again, this is an MVP Trevor show, I think. But despite the fact that all of them are the MVP of last night.
But, well, it's my notes. Like the early stars are Peter and Trevor in this one.
100%.
They just come out hot. Yeah.
Yeah. But so Trevor comes up with the next musical idea, like this progression that they're going to then build around for the rest of the jam. And they all kind of gradually join in with Trevor. I love Rick just hanging back, playing rhythm, letting Peter and Trevor do all the leading in the early part of this jam. Like obviously Rick hangs back usually at the beginning of Thatch, but this felt to me like a very purposeful move on his part to let the other 2 guys lead for a while. And then from there, sometimes we get like Rick hangs back for a while, and then when he comes in on lead, he comes in hot, and he doesn't do that here. Like he does eventually, but like it's more of a gradual ramp up to that. Like the way that this starts building, when they get into that progression, you're like, oh my God, this is sick. And then Rick starts throwing in these little riffs, like he's sticking to mostly rhythm. And then there's this one that he does where it's like, ba, 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 like that like 3-note ascending thing. And then it goes back to rhythm. And I was just blown away last night. He was doing his bounce that he does when he's like really with it. Like I saw yesterday that tweet that's like defined locked in making the rounds again. And I was like, just have a video of
him just doing I know what you're talking about.
Man.
Yeah, man. Not much more to add. You've listened to this like note for note, and you have analysis for every note.
Like
I don't have much to say about this Thatch like you do, but I mean, I think it's incredible. I think it's really good. I think it kind of stays in like a lane. But the one thing I will say is sometimes the best Goose is when Rick plays fewer notes.
Yeah.
Something about it. When Rick like hops on rhythm, it's also actually my favorite kind of fish too, is when Trey is playing fewer notes. But
it's not it's maybe not fewer notes, it's more being more mindful of what each note is doing as opposed to, shreddy peak.
Yeah, it's the David Gilmour approach, right? Less is more.
Yeah. And I mean, and this peak still shreds pretty hard for a long time. I kept being like, all right, like that's got to be the end, right? Like they're going to go back into Thatch, and they hit the note that you think is going back into Thatch, but then they're still in that progression for so long. And it was amazing. It's just a display of full band jamming, and they're getting to that point towards the end of this jam where, they're at the point in the show where they know that they're fucking crushing it. And once they get in that mindset, everything for the rest of the show is gravy. Like they cannot do a wrong thing for the rest of the show. Once they are in that mindset, which they clearly got to towards the end of this Thatch. Sorry, before we move on, do you have anything else to say on this Thatch?
No, I don't. We've got a lot more to talk about. Holy smokes.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. So Fishboat. boat fish. Nice little connection theme here. I was initially, obviously, well, first of all, they hadn't played Old Man's Boat in 2 months since SPAC. And, I was initially not very excited at all when they started playing this. I was like, I guess cool down slot for boat here.
That's exactly what it is. Yep.
But then.
Yes, then.
But then, what I described it as this morning is this is a very sweaty 27 minutes of music. Like it was warm in the venue last night, but like I just feel like the vibe is just like late night sweaty dance party. And when they started the boat jam, first of all, there was no like easing into it like they normally do. Cotter leads things off, brisk tempo. Peter, flips on the arpeggiator, and I love the arpeggiator on the Muse. Sounds so much better than the one on the Nord lead that he used to use. Like it makes that one sound like a toy by comparison. Like this one just feels more sophisticated.
I hear that,
than that one. And then Trevor in the room, there's been these moments, I think it was during the Thatch and St. Augustine as well. There's been these moments lately where the way that he's plucking the string of the bass just comes out so crystal clear in the venue. And the early part of this boat, I tried to take a video of that. Obviously, the video did not capture it the way that it sounded in the room. But in the early part of this boat, he's just locking in on this repeating riff, and it sounded so good. And I was so happy, first of all, not just to get a really sick Old Man's Boat jam, but for Old Man's Boat to go outside of normal boat territory, which it's only done like twice ever. Right? Being like
second time in Ohio, by the way, that it's done this thing.
Second time in Ohio. But yeah, the first time being the Eastern in Atlanta in 2021. And the other time being the Agora in 2022, where it kind of did a similar thing tonight, where it got like fast dancing, and that one went into Use Me, which was really sick. 3:10:22. Check that out. But this one, and Columbus, Shawnee, good point. That one was the first one.
Well, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Oh, you were thinking of Columbus?
Yeah, the Kemba. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Well, it's a very similar vibe to that one. Yeah.
Yeah, this one's just awesome. And then Trevor's the one that starts leading us out of boat. He hangs on the E flat instead of, going up through the progression again. And things just get full dance party in there. You got Peter crushing it on vibe. Man. Oh, and Rick on the Mutron. Oh
yes, that was my big note for this. It was like, man, like, it's so good. So
that's all you got on this boat.
Well, I mean, I can't really add more than what you've said. I like the similarity between this and Kemba Live, like very, very similar. And weird that Old Man's Boat is like a second set banger in hot shows this year, but this is the second time it's happened. I also think the version at SPAC was so appropriately placed. And then there's like this one, so appropriately placed. There are people who hate Old Man's Boat, and I don't necessarily disagree with them. For that first half of the song, it kind of feels really slow.
I've listened to this Old Man's Boat 3 times today. Not once have I listened to the song.
You just skip right to the jam.
I skipped directly to the jam.
Yeah.
And I have just been like twirling around Mike's
house.
Yeah.
Amazing. But no, I like it where it is. And, you do get that cool down after that Thatch. You definitely needed that cool down after the Thatch.
There you go.
The band probably needed it more than anybody.
Yeah.
Especially the rhythm section. And then you get this really vibey jam that goes into yet another vibey jam in one of the sickest segues I think I've heard in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, this band is nailing that. We talked about it a little bit earlier. I think in the recorded episode when we were doing like recaps, I was talking about how awesome their segues have been this year, and historically they are not great at that. There are just so many this year, and this is another one, second one of the show even, that's really, really tight.
100%. It's all about the vibes, Neil.
It's all about the vibes.
It's not. You know why? Because it's also about these huge jams.
It's about the jams. Well, sometimes the best shows are good for vibes people and jams people. And I think We have
that's
that here.
what the best shows are. We do have that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the segue into Fish in the Sea was amazing. You know, you kind of see it coming, but that didn't, you know, make it any, you know, less exciting, because it was so cool. You know, and Fish in the Sea is one of their best covers, and just continues the vibe out of this boat. And this is not your average Fish in the Sea.
14 and a half minutes.
Like this is good stuff. And you know, Peter, when he hits the piano towards the end on that kind of final peak, that's kind of like oh yeah, like, you know.
It's very, very good. I mean, if you've listened to Fish in the Sea, you know what they sound like. They all kind of sound the same. It's a question of just how deep they dig into that drony jam. But this one actually feels like it does less of the kind of droning thing that it historically has done, and just like some ripping soloing by Rick in there too. And the song is just such an awesome vibe. Love this in the second set in the show. I mean, this is like some killer setlist construction here. Very, very thoughtful stuff. And this is placed perfectly.
Well, and that's a segue I bet you that they practiced earlier. Yeah. And I'm so on board with it. You know, like when it's that good, like, you know, they planned that out. And whether they practiced it or not, like maybe they were just like, you know, let's jam out the boat and then just weave the arpeggiator into the beginning of Fish. And then executed. Boom. And so at this point, Oh,
well, I want to point this out. So, like, good point, Shawnee Mac. At some point, the Factory Fiction is coming over the next 2 days. I feel like it has to, and it did feel like last night that it was coming. Although it makes you wonder when it does show up, what is that set going to look like? Holy smoke! I mean, this is
I don't know, but stuff. I'm hoping that we're getting ahead of ourselves here. But when they do play Factory, probably this weekend, I'm hoping that it is of the Red Rocks 2023 variety, where they have 25 minutes to jam the shit out of it.
Yes, let's jam it, please.
So, yes, Facebook user, really.
Don't know what's going on there,
but you've got good opinions. Fish in the Sea feels like their song now, taking it back places I never imagined from the original.
Yeah,
nice.
Agreed.
All right, next up, you know, at this point in the set, I'm like, all right, we're gonna get like a Western Sun here, like Your Ocean, like. We're going to get a cool down now. No, Pancakes. Surprise.
Wow.
And 14 minutes. You look at a 14-minute Pancakes on a set list usually, and that's like that's like usually a skip. That's like it's 14 minutes, it's Pancakes. Great. Do not skip this. Do not, under any circumstances, skip this Pancakes. Normally with Pancakes, you know, it takes a few minutes to kind of get out of the song. Like they like to hang out in the Pancake space for a while. I thought they were segueing into something because of how quickly it departed normal Pancakes jamming. You're like, but it's 30 seconds Pancakes.
In. Well, like that's the weird thing. It's like type 1 Pancakes, but it's not Pancakes. I don't know how the hell they did that, but that's what I hear when I
wouldn't call it straight type 1, just because.
Are we going to say like type 1.5?
Yeah, it is. But when they slow it down and just bring it way down, like it was so cool the way that happened. Like it didn't seem as though there was a ton of communication. I think like Rick and Peter kind of started getting a little drifty, and Cotter just brought the tempo way down and then way back up right when he needed to be. But they're hanging out in this space, and then Rick puts on the sauce, but like that really like that heavy sauce effect, not like the saucy slick one, and just starts like doing this very emotional soloing. And then there's one really cool part where with that effect on, he's playing some chords, but it just kind of sounds like a wall of noise a little bit. And so there's another really cool portion where the rest of the band just really comes to the forefront, with Rick doing more textural shit. This Pancakes is really, really phenomenal.
It's really, really good for as short as it is. And it's one idea, and that's it. And it's just really, really fleshed out. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Like I've only given this like 1.5 listens here, but it really does sound like it no longer sounds like Pancakes. But I think in terms of like just like chord structure and everything like that, it
retains
stays
a sentiment.
Very close to Pancakes. And like I've been listening to a ton of Grateful Dead lately. You know this. I'm working my way through the Dick's Picks 1 through 36. And like somehow this reminds me of the Grateful Dead, who are exceptional at doing this, like just taking the song and like maybe getting away from the song, but still saying like very near the song and just fleshing out amazing ideas. Again, this show is just brimming with incredible musical ideas. And like, this is another example of it. And yeah, just so good. I really, really enjoyed the hell out of this. And this is some of my favorite kind of jamming where it's just, I guess, like a fresh approach to a song where you can, if you listen to a lot of jam music, you can find jams to be monotonous, where it's just like, we're doing that thing again in this jam. And like, they did it 3 shows ago and 4 shows before that. It's, similar vibe. This is the stuff that, as a person who listens to a lot of jams, that I get really, really excited about because it's very, very different than what they normally do.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Very, very well said, Neil. Next up, we get the debut of new Father John Misty cover, So I'm Growing Old on Magic Mountain. I'm a big fan of this. I really like this song. Very, very welcome cool down. Once I figured out what it was, shout out to Mads, who was the first one to get what song this was. Thank you very much for your help while I was frantically trying to Google lyrics and figure out what they were playing. But this is a really cool down. The vibe of it reminds me a little bit of Broke Down Palace. Just the kind of the space that it occupies. I also really like throughout Peter's very subtle organ throughout the song. Like it's quiet. It's more in the background than we usually get with organ. But I thought it sounded really good. And I mean, this was a fantastic cool down for this set. Now, someone, I want to say it was Matt Ross, who had a good point on Twitter. This is all well and good, but where's 726?
Yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair.
If you're going to be nitpicky, but this song was amazing. And I loved the way that they brought it down, after so much incredible jamming already in this set, so much energy, the way that they brought things down here was amazing. What do you think of this new cover?
I mean, just like deep cuts into the FJM catalog. It's just amazing. And this one is interesting because it's a very Tom Waitsy
oh yeah, totally.
Father John Misty song. And like when I listened to it, I was like, of course they're going to play this. But is this the 3rd Father John Misty? It might even be the 4th Father John Misty song that they've played. My second show they played, was it my second show or my first show? I'm like looking it up as we go. I think it was your
first show where You Can Do It Without Me?
Yeah, well, You Can Do It Without Me. And so that one never came back. I thought that was great. This one also great. So I hope it doesn't go away. I really like it in that slot too. Again, set listing wise, very intentional about this show. They learned this cover for this show, or maybe Rick plays it all the time. Who knows? Sounds like he's a big Father John Misty fan. But I'm not complaining. Yes, the 726 would be cool. But I also agree with Uncle Fred's jive. When we get that 726, it's coming with a drip, and that drip's coming at some point to close out the second set tonight.
In the next couple of shows.
Yeah, next few shows, let's say.
Gonna be big.
Sure. So, yeah, it's gonna be sick.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, that's a good point, Uncle Fred's drive. We are definitely getting the 726 drip before this tour is out. Yeah, and then set closes with SOS here. Always reliable. I love this as we talk about it all the time. Like, I love this as a second set closer. And I think at this point, it's like, we've been blowing shit up all night. Like, this is just the song that's just like, hands in the air. Fuck yeah.
It's arena rock.
Yeah. And Rick pops a string during the ending solo. Shout out to Peter for immediately saving him and soloing. Shout out to Bruce Robinson, friend of the pod, who's a few seats over from me, who sometimes likes to yell things at the band. Normally I try to tune him out when he's doing so, but he had a really funny comment when Peter he goes like, yeah, Rick, like Peter just saved your ass, or like something like that. It was very funny in the moment. But yeah, so Rick breaks a string, throws the rest of his guitar wildly out of tune. But yeah, he's tuning up. Peter solos, and then they finish the song. And my first thought is, they don't have time to restring Rick's guitar before the encore here.
Right.
And lo and behold,
there it is.
Finally. I incorrectly tweeted Dracula a bunch of times. The Dracul makes its debut on the stage. It's been around. It's been backstage, but it's now been played with Goose. I don't notice that much of a difference from the Empress. More sophisticated guitar people may know more than me. I mean, I just thought his tone sounded great all night. But Rick seemed very excited to be playing this guitar on stage, you know, whether it was intentional or not, because I'm sure he did not walk out on stage last night thinking he was going to be playing this guitar. You know, like, so it's kind of funny that, you know, it's been backstage for so long. We've been waiting for it to get played. And when it finally makes its stage debut, it's because he popped a string, you know, on the other one and didn't really have a choice.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting about Rick is, like, I feel like we used to talk about this all the time, but Rick historically, like 2021, 2020, blowing strings like every show. And would routinely actually pick up his second guitar. And we used to joke about it, like no E string is safe from Rick, because he just used to blow the high E string like all the time. And yeah, it hasn't been happening lately. Also makes me wonder
when you get a guitar tech.
I guess that's what happens when you have a guitar tech, right? Like fresh strings, often, like probably well stretched, all of that. But makes me wonder, where is the old Hollow Body 2? There are like two of them now. Like the one that Peter used to play, then went to Rick's.
I think that's Peter's guitar.
Does it go back to Peter? Does Peter still have it?
Well, I think it's Peter's guitar. I think it was just Rick's backup in 2021 because Rick didn't have another guitar that he didn't have another PRS.
Yeah, it's just funny because that guitar was played by both of them on stage. So that's interesting. I wonder where that guitar lives now.
Well, I mean, it was played by Rick as early as 2019, like, because he didn't have a backup. And so when he'd pop a string in 2019, Peter would just give him his guitar.
So then his Hollow Body 2, I mean, that thing is like a historic guitar. Where is that thing now? Is that still on stage? I don't know. I don't pay attention.
No, I mean, Shawnee, why don't they have backup guitars on stage with them anymore? They have a guitar tech.
Yeah, they got money.
They're sitting side stage in a road case, and if they are needed, they are brought out.
Yeah.
When you get big, you don't need to carry.
Well, you know, I'm just really glad that it all worked out, that he got to flex the new guitar on Love Light. You know,
Love Light.
That's the one that everybody wanted, right?
Hey, man, it's a hot Love Light.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
It's like again, this is like, you know, you get Love Light Encore, whatever, but like Rick clearly was excited to be playing the Dracul, and you know, like ripped the shit out of this Love Light.
I wonder if we see more of it this weekend. This is exciting. This is a monumental moment. It really is. Like, if years from now we will talk about when is the first show that Rick played this guitar, and no one will remember, but you will. So, you know, we've got that going for us.
Footnote on algoose.net so people can keep track. Nate asking the real questions. Why Essentia water over Fiji water? When we have Sam King on the show, we'll ask her.
Someday.
What goes into the water choice?
Who knows? I don't know.
Speculation. Fiji water gives them headaches.
Right.
Anyway, we've been talking for a long time because this show deserves to be talked about for a long time.
A lot of words, some might say.
A lot of words. Yes.
A lot of words.
Man, this is great. You know,
big day today. Can we talk about the day? Because everybody on Earth who's a Goose fan is in Ohio right now, except for me. And everybody's having the time of their lives, according to social media. And there are more exciting, fun things happening over the next 2 days. One thing, we don't even know what's going on. Peter has hinted at something's happening on Sunday, and it's going to be the greatest day anybody's ever experienced. However,
I personally am in the camp that he was just saying that to, like, stir the pot a little.
I think sometimes Peter just says words and then
exactly.
doesn't realize what they
he's
mean.
Excited about Sunday. I don't think there's anything happening beyond Goose probably playing a really kick-ass show. But I mean, if you're on the fence about going to the show and, you know, Peter's thing may have swayed you, like, come to the show. It's going to be sick.
Yeah. So let's talk about today. There are big things happening today.
Lot of things happening.
Should I bring it up? Is it awkward for you to bring it up, or why don't you?
I mean, so the Queen City Flowdown. The Queen City Flowdown, organized by the Western Sun Foundation, I believe, and some other cool people, is happening at Braxton Brewing in Cincinnati as we speak. It has already started. Go check it out. Lots of amazing vendors from across our amazing community. Got lots of stuff going on. Plus, at 1:30, Ohio's own Jam Band Jovi takes the stage, led by the mayor of Ohio himself, Mike Morosky. And they will be joined by special guests Tavis Conley and myself.
And Ryan Storm.
Later on this afternoon.
Yeah.
So come by Braxton Brewing. It's going to be a great time. It's the Cincinnati location, not the Covington location. It's going to be a great afternoon. And then after the show tonight in Covington, Houseplant is playing. And I'm not really an afters guy, but I've never seen Houseplant, and I feel like I need to go.
You have to be an afters guy tonight. I mean, it's like a before and afters.
And Kyle Hurd. Yes.
Also Kyle Hurd. But so, like, if you don't know who Tavis Conley is in Houseplant. So he will be playing with Jam Band Jovi and Ryan Storm today. So if you're watching this podcast, please go check that out. And you're there, of course, because everybody's there but me. So, like, if you're all there, please just go to the show. It's going to be great. Yeah.
Go to the show. Yep.
And, I think Josh has it right. You run to Houseplant. You don't just go to House. Like, you get there as fast as you can after the show. Do not walk. Yes, exactly.
Do not walk to Houseplant. And a nap maybe at some point. Not going to happen.
Naps are for the week.
No, don't you take naps?
Every show day.
Well,
man.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's an action-packed weekend here in Ohio, the capital of the universe. And we're back tonight with more Goose, of course. So we'll see you out there. We'll be back here tomorrow afternoon at 3:30 Eastern to recap tonight's show, which is going to be good, of course. Because as Peter said, Goose is an Ohio band. This has been an episode of the Hasty Train. Neil, can you take us out?